Thank you very much, Mr. Magnarelli.
Well, I just want to say, again, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for being here, and for waiting all this time again, too. My questions, again, revolve around AIM and all the other programs that the governor has put into the budget for the last few years, and whether or not you feel that those programs are something you can take advantage of, or are you just simply pushing on the AIM side of things, which I can understand.
Let me first start off by just telling you who I have with me. I have Andrew Lenny, who's the budget director, John Lazewski, who's the finance commissioner. So let me just, so they might jump in. Many of the programs that the governor has put forth are good programs. They help us, but the numbers that are there, the dollars that are available to us, are not dollars that are actually significant enough, at least in the big city world, to solve the problems. And so I think that the ideas are right, the approach is right, the dollars need to be increased for these programs to work for us.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor.
Senator?
Thank you, and I want to give a special welcome to my former colleague in the State Assembly. It's been like old home day in many ways because some of our former colleagues from the Assembly and the Senate have been here. So I just want to say welcome to you. We're so glad to have you here to testify. And at this point, I would like to turn it over to Senator Andrea Stewart-Cousins.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Young. It's welcome. I know it's been a long day, and so I appreciate your condensing the presentation. And I know that Education Day is going to be tomorrow, so I suspect that we will hear very similar things from our superintendent. But I am glad that you brought up the need to rebuild the infrastructure in not only our bridges and roads, but also the schools. It's certainly something that our conference has been putting forward over the past couple of years, especially as we get dollars into the state that are one-shots, and we look at where we can put that money, clearly also investing in the infrastructure of our schools and our children's education makes a difference and means something. So I am looking forward to seeing whatever the proposal is. I think the reality is that Yonkers is in an incredibly difficult position with about 37 schools that need to be rebuilt, but quite frankly, throughout the state, there is a need to start looking at where we're asking our children to learn so that they can actually be competitive in this global society. We have to really make sure that they have all what they need in order to get out there. So I'm hoping that not only will this make sense in terms of the legislature putting it forward, but again, it causes a conversation, which is a statewide conversation, I certainly within the district that I represent, and I'm sure so many others, of how are we going to help municipalities, especially in the tax cap world, to do just that type of rebuilding. So I'm looking forward to it. You did mention that there were 47,000 students, and usually
27.
Did you say 27? I'm
Yes.
sorry, because I thought I heard 47,000, and I was wondering.
I said 47.
And I was wondering where the other 20,000 came from. Okay. I said, I know I've only been up here for a day and a half.
Sorry about that, Senator. You know, we're known to exaggerate that number a little bit, but I don't want to exaggerate.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a big leap. So that was my question that I had. But I also want to let you know that we, in my conference, have talked about this increase in AIM because we understand that aid to municipalities is just that. And we understood also that during the recession, it was frozen. But at this point, we are moving along in terms of the economy of the state. And I think it's really time to start revisiting what we do for our localities as it relates to AIM. So again, I'm looking forward to knowing more about the proposal and continuing to not, you know, we did the bailouts and I really want to thank my colleagues too for being as responsive and obviously the governor for what was a critical time in Yonkers where there was, you know, a $55 million mathematical error that led to what would have been a terrible crisis. So I really want to thank my colleagues for responding so well, but I'm glad that you're being proactive and looking at the next level, so.
Right, and Leader Cousins, let me just start off by saying thank you to you, because you've been a great leader for us, and you've stood up for us time and time again. And I don't know what we would have done in the last few years if we didn't have your leadership here, and thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Assemblyman Pretlow.
Mr. Mayor, welcome back to Albany. I know you spent many a year here, off and on. Before I start, I want to give you a congratulations on an excellent job of snow removal in the city of Yonkers on Sunday. I happened to find myself by the St. John's Hospital Hill, and I know you know it well, and it's a dangerous road anytime, and it was perfectly done, and I was impressed. A few years ago, I had asked you if you felt like Sisyphus. Do you remember that?
Yes.
And I think that from your testimony today, you've finally gotten that stone over the hill. The curse has been lifted, and I think Yonkers is on the way to greater things. I think that the leadership that you've been providing and operating under the constraints that the city and most cities have been required to operate under has worked out. I mean, I've sat on this panel for at least 20 years, and every year speaking to your predecessors as well as you, it was always, next year we're going to be great. Next year, if Ridge Hill just happened, we'll be great. If we get this, we'll be great. Bail us out, bail us out. And looking through your testimony, you're not asking for a bailout this year. You're asking for capital. You're asking to help get the infrastructure together, and that's something that's usually doable. That's long term. That's not repeating. And I think that because of management of the city and getting your contracts and things in order, that it is happening. So I think that's good. I just want to focus though on the Board of Education. We did some financial things last year to increase dollars to education. The sales tax, the 0.5% or 1/4% of sales tax that's supposed to go directly to education. There was a the estimates were a certain number. How on target are we with those numbers?
We're on target for the 0.5% sales tax that's dedicated for education. It's $11.4 million.
So we're on target, so I could expect to see an additional $11.4 million going to education in the next year.
I'm talking about in the current year, we're on target.
I mean,
The current
well,
year,
the tax just kicked in December. And you're 6 months, your fiscal year is in June, right? So
Yes.
you're going to get 6 months out of it. So the total projection was, I think, 14 million. Half a year would be 7 million. You're telling me you can get 14 million in 6 months?
it was 11.4 million. It was 9 months. It started in September. So
Oh, in September, okay.
And the maintenance of effort concurrent with that was an 11.4 increase,
going up.
$1 million increase to the Board of Ed. So in fiscal year 16, we are on target.
Okay, sounds good. Mr. Mayor, I've never believed in the way that the administrations, all of them, have always phrased the Yonkers budget as city side versus school side. I've always said Yonkers has one budget. But through all the years, I've always heard about the school side was always out of whack, and the city side was in great shape. And the same taxpayers, same dollars, same everything. Right now, is there a proposed shortage in the what you would term the Board of Education budget?
It's based on the governor's numbers. We're about 7 million, if you want to say status quo. So 7 million short, if you want to be status quo to last year, which is in a $550 million budget.
You said 7 million, not 70 million like the last year,
Seven.
not 110 million?
7.
7?
Yeah. Now, I just want to, I like painting the rosy picture, but also let's point out, if you don't mind, I just want to point out something too. While I think we've done a lot better, our bond rate is going up, we're managing within our finances, but we're also using a bunch of tools that have helped us, for instance, the pension the smoothing, just trying to think of what the others were. Pitch and smoothing and the bonding for certiorari and the use of our surplus has kept us there as well, which is not the greatest thing in the world, but certainly what the city has used before. And we've continued that, but we'd like to start to move away from that in time, because I think that would really help us out. But on the cities, but on the overall budget, I'm sorry, if you go just to the education side, we're $7 million for status quo. Dr. Casada will come here tomorrow, the superintendent of our schools, will probably talk to you about additional things, or additional areas that he would like to inject some money into, like special ed or English proficiency, where he feels that he can bring us even further along in terms of having the school district that we all envision we want. So, I mean, so you'll probably, so before you think there's two different numbers, there's not. He'll tell you that, but he's also going to point out, which is what the delegation has asked for, point out what are some additional dollars you need, and what would you use them for, and how would the city use those dollars, and that's...
So if everything stays exactly the way it is, you're $7 million short, but the new superintendent is probably going to ask for more music teachers and art teachers and infrastructure repairs and things of that nature, so he will be looking for an additional X million dollars. But as far as the city functioning and the school district moving on, we're not going to have a crisis as we've had the past several years.
No. And that's because of the partnership we have, and I want to say thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other senators?
No Senate questions.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, sorry, Shelley. I'll wake up. Shelley Mayer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a long day. Thank you, Mayor. I do want to commend you on the snow removal. I do think, under incredibly difficult circumstances, this was the best Yonkers has done. And I would commend you also on having the snow emergency and prohibiting street traffic. It was one very wise decision, and it led to us being able to come back. Although the school was closed on Monday, it was unfortunate.
Yeah. Thank you, Senator.
I have a question. Last year, in addition to the sales tax, the dedicated 0.5% sales tax we got for education, which I think was unique in sales tax history, and I appreciate the partnership we had on that. We also got a hotel occupancy tax that you had wanted for a long time. What is the projected revenue for the City of Yonkers hotel occupancy tax?
$600,000 to $700,000 this fiscal year, and it was also a short year, so it started in September.
What's the full year projection for it?
Probably closer to $800,000 to $900,000.
And are we on target on that?
Well, we actually did not. It came after the budget was released, so
right.
It's going to just simply fall to fund balance. But we are on target for our projections in our multi-year plan. Yes.
Okay. Secondly, in terms of infrastructure, non-school infrastructure that you mentioned in your testimony, do you have a projected dollar number that you're, not a wish list, but a realistic number that you're thinking of that you would seek for capital infrastructure?
And I don't want to say something that would sound at all disrespectful. It's kind of limitless.
I know that.
But I will tell you this: we have an immediate need to build a firehouse. We put it out to what they call an RFP just a couple of weeks ago. We projected to be about $10 million. And so what we've done, because the firehouse had fallen into such disrepair, previous administrations had planned on closing it, so no one put money into it. The facade started falling away. We were afraid about what could happen to the firefighters if we blew them out and put them in another firehouse. They're kind of crammed in. So we have to build another firehouse pretty quickly. And so, yeah, I think that would be our immediate need, is a firehouse. We are going to move forward with that locally, even though it's going to be a strain. But we're going to probably bond the money and move forward with it. But any additional help we can get from all of you here at the State Capitol would help us out tremendously.
Well, if you could share the projected costs of the replacement of the firehouse, and also I know your capital budget anticipated shortfall in numerical, in a chart, that would be helpful.
Okay.
Lastly, on the rebuilding of the schools project, which I know we're going to get briefed on later this week, and so I don't know the answer to this, within that proposal, is there a portion of the capital cost that's going to be borne by the city of Yonkers?
Yes, there is. And what we were asking for are numbers that are similar to what Rochester, Buffalo, and Syracuse are paying. We know that may not pan out. We're willing to have a discussion. We're willing to put what we can into it, but we're realistic to the fact that, you know, even if at 90% of our taxable taxing limit, and I realize that those dollars are exempt, but we're still there, if we were to put under today's number would be about $600 million to the local property taxpayer, which would be pretty near impossible for the taxpayers to afford. And so I think there's a political will to rebuild the schools, but the dollars are not there. And because we're in Westchester County, I think that there's a belief that Yonkers is this wealthy community. While we're doing much better than we've done in the past, and we seem to be moving up and economic development is happening, we're still, you know, our expenses are still exceeding our revenues by this much. It's beyond anybody's control. But like I said, I like to see the glass is half full. We're getting there, and we're just going to keep on fighting. But anything that we can get in terms of additional state aid to help us close that gap will be something that I think will make it real and make it happen. If it's based on today's formula, those schools will not get built because the local property taxpayers don't have the money to do it. But if the state of New York is able to be a little more creative with us in terms of how we can finance this and do this over the next decade, I think it's realistic it can happen.
And last question, I know certainly since I've been here, Yonkers has stayed under the property tax cap. This year the cap is so low that it's very much a challenge for all municipalities, and it's going to be a huge challenge for Yonkers. And I know you're not at the budget yet, but is it your anticipation you can stay under the tax cap?
Yes, yes it is.
Okay.
It's going to be hard, I get it, but we committed to that, and we're going to stick with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, members of the legislature.
The Honorable Stephanie Minor, Mayor of the City of Syracuse.
Thank you, Chairman Farrell. I also want to thank you, Senator Young, for welcoming me here tonight, although I didn't anticipate saying tonight when I arrived. But I do want to genuinely thank you for this opportunity to come and talk to you today. And I want to say first off that having had the opportunity to hear all of my fellow mayors, that I join in most, if not all, of everything that they talk to you about today. I'd like to take a moment to offer some different thoughts than they did, and some thoughts about the state of our democracy here in New York, with a particular emphasis on the growing disconnect between the general public and the political class, and what that growing disconnect means for our ability to govern. And yes, budget effectively, which after all is just setting priorities. Our state's recent past, and especially this past year, has been notably marked by a dark storm cloud of public corruption and self-dealing. And this cloud darkens the door of every elected official, the honest and the dishonest, the state and the local officials, cheapening public service and discouraging good people from entering into politics. And as that cloud shadow grows, it helps feed a corrosive sense of us versus them that drives down voter participation, stifles growth, and people's sense of equitable public policy. Corruption, in a word, is toxic to democracy. And sadly, even as the appalling toll of that storm's damage to both individuals and institutions continue to mount, its fundamental root causes remain unaddressed. And one of those root causes is the insidious role that money currently plays in our state's politics. Because of the LLC loophole and other chasms in our campaign finance laws, we have a system where an individual or a corporation can pour virtually unlimited amounts of money into candidates and causes and do so in a way that effectively masks the true identity of the contributor. I have taken the step of voluntarily refusing to accept contributions from LLCs, and I would urge you to take action to eliminate that loophole statutorily. Another root cause is the barriers that have been erected to prevent greater voter participation. If voter participation rates are an indication of the body politic's health, then we have a grave illness that needs our attention. In the 2014 elections, less than 1/3 of New York State's eligible voting population participated. We can and must do better. And to that end, I urge you to look at 3 proposals that have been proven to increase voter participation rates. First, to allow a 20-day early voting period as exists in 37 states in our country. Second, to allow no excuse permanent absentee voting. Currently, there are 27 states that permit this type of absentee voting, which allows eligible voters to request a ballot that can be submitted by mail without mandating the voter declare reason. This reform is a stepping stone to explore vote-by-mail policy that has been implemented with great success in Washington, Oregon, and Colorado. And third, as Oregon has recently done, enact universal voter registration whereby individuals are automatically registered to vote at 18 unless they choose to opt out. This groundbreaking proposal will almost certainly boost Oregon's best-in-the-nation turnout rates that exceed 80% in presidential years. I say that to you again, 80% presidential years. Imagine what our democracy would look like here in New York if we could reach those voters. It is worth noting that voter participation is closely tied to demographics. Racial and ethnic minorities, the young and the poor, have the lowest participation rates and, ironically, are most impacted by government policies. And as a result, some of our most vulnerable populations are left with a diminished voice in their government. In Syracuse, we live this. As you've heard many of the mayors before me talk about their overwhelming poverty rates. Our numbers are stark. We have one of the highest poverty rates in the United States, exceeding 35%. And we have the highest level of poverty concentrations among blacks and Hispanics in the 100 largest metropolitan areas. The Syracuse City School District has the 4th highest poverty rate in New York State, with more than 3/4 of the students qualifying for free lunch. If we are going to replace poverty with true opportunity, New York State must stand up for these children from birth through college. It begins with prenatal and early child home visits by nurses and family outreach workers. As I heard today, was asked of Mayor de Blasio to commit to family nurse partnerships. These programs and others show that we can improve high school graduation rates, the health of students and families. We need to make sure that quality, affordable child care is available to every family who needs it, and New York needs to fulfill its promise to provide every 4-year-old with access to full-day pre-kindergarten. Based on the Campaign for Fiscal Equity court ruling, New York State was ordered to pay our neediest schools more. And under that ruling, the state currently owes New York State schools $4.8 billion, and of this, the Syracuse schools alone are owed $63 million. Our students need and deserve this smart investment. New York can afford to invest in creating opportunities for all children to make sure that they succeed from birth through college, and we must do that. Another topic I'd like to address in general terms is our approach to economic development. I say our, in the sense that economic development is often a collaborative process between various private entities and levels of government, each with its own set of tools. My concern is that our current approach to economic development is uncoordinated and essentially a trickle-down, relying too heavily on big tax breaks for big developers in exchange for promises of dubious benefits for taxpayers that often don't pan out. Earlier, you heard me speak of the corrosive effect of corruption, and I would argue that trickle-down economic development also plays a role in undermining people's faith in government. At a time when income inequality and economic insecurity is palpable for many New Yorkers, including Syracusans, we continue to pursue a failed top-down strategy that only exacerbates the problem. We need to begin to rethink our approach to place emphasis on economic development that serves the public good, where taxpayers can see and feel a real return on the investment of their tax dollars, and gives people a true sense of opportunity. One of those places, as you've heard me speak before about, is infrastructure. And you've heard many of the mayors speak about infrastructure. It is vital to the core mission of government, and it transcends public parties. The signs of a functioning government to the average citizen are paved roads and clean waters and the ability for trash to be collected. And as New Yorkers, we have a history of understanding that investing in infrastructure spurs economic growth for everyone. A Federal Reserve study found that infrastructure expenditures has a huge multiplier effect, and every dollar yielded an outcome of more than $2. Competing needs for operations and infrastructure are putting local governments at a breaking point. And we have seen that, and you have heard that firsthand from many of the other mayors who have spoken to you today. There is little question that local governments are in desperate need of partners to ensure that the infrastructure we are once so proud of is fixed, updated, and maintained. We only need to turn on the television or read the newspaper to see the dangers of ignoring critical infrastructures is playing out tragically before our eyes. In Flint, Michigan, we saw it in Troy. We are learning about it in Hoosick Falls as well. One would be hard-pressed to find a greater cautionary tale of a toll that budget neglect can wreak on a community. What is happening across the country is a stunning indictment of the age of deferred maintenance and its disproportionate impacts on communities of color. I urge you to do everything in your power to ensure that the necessary investments are made to help ensure that no New York community suffers the same fate. Thank you for allowing me the time and the opportunity to testify before you today. And I look forward to working with you to make sure that the promise of opportunity is attainable for all New Yorkers. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions? Mr. Magnorelli?
Yes. Mayor, thank you for waiting.
It's my job, Assemblyman.
Mine too. It's been a long day. Again, I've been reading some of the things that you've just said, and also your comments, I think, in the Times Union. I'm not sure if I got that one right or not. Been a lot of things I've been reading lately. But the idea that we can, I guess I don't see the plan. That's what I want to ask you. I don't disagree with you in terms of the things that you have set forth here and that we should be striving to do, all of them. There isn't anything that I disagree with. On the other hand, the amounts of money that it would take to do those things across New York State are a lot more than increasing taxes by 1% on the rich. It would be humongous amounts of money. So all I guess I'm saying is I understand what you're saying, so this is kind of a statement to at least say to you, I hear what you're saying. I think it's very important that we get into these issues and that they're talked about. But at the same time, I've got to deal with a budget for this year, for New York State, for the cities across New York State, and how do I deal with that? So I'm going to ask you, just for Syracuse now, the same questions that I've asked basically every other mayor that's come up here. Is AIM enough? And how do the other programs that the governor has put in place, how do they work? And with Syracuse, because of the report that came out also, some of the things that he has been, the consensus report I'm alluding to, some of the things that the governor's programs put in place would help that. So with that in mind, I know this is kind of a rambling question, but I hope I'm getting my point across.
You are.
What do you think?
AIM is not enough, as you've heard each of the mayors say, the mayor of New York City. AIM is not enough. It's been flat, and we have seen our pension costs, some go up. They're starting to ratchet down for us here in Syracuse, but as we see the market underperform, we worry that in December, the pension costs are going to go up again. Healthcare goes up. Binding interest arbitration awards come down for police and fire, and they really hamstring us. So we are dealing with a situation where our revenues are flat, and yet our expenses continue to grow in large leaps and bounds. I would tell you that in terms, every budget, having to do Syracuse's budget as mayor during very challenging times for the last 7 years, I understand it's about setting priorities. And there are lots of needs and not enough resources. But I would share with you that the more we ignore infrastructure, the more we ignore the kind of pernicious effects that poverty is having on the people of this state, we will no longer be seen as a place of opportunity. 1 out of every 2 children born in the city of Syracuse, the city of Rochester, the city of Buffalo is born into poverty. And because of the programs that have been systematically and quietly eliminated by the federal government and some by the state, those children and those families will not have an opportunity to escape poverty. And they will become burdens for our criminal justice system, for our social services system, but most importantly, all of us, I think, who are in public service, we believe that those children and families can be an asset to our economy. And until we start looking at economic development in a way that includes everyone and doesn't just depend on giving tax breaks, we're going to continue to see the futures of those families and children across our state, and obviously I'm very concerned about Syracuse in particular, continue to grow. When you look at what the governor admirably did in his State of the State and budget proposal talking about the poverty initiatives, but you look at that map of where those numbers are, that I think is a telling sign that we need to approach economic development differently, that we have that many children, that many people in our state living in those kind of circumstances.